Ex-roommate demands $335 for utilities after I drove her and her cats across states. Despite my extensive help, she acted ungrateful. Now, after 2 years of growth and therapy, I'm torn. Should I pay her just to clear my conscience? What's the right move? Setting. We were both college students who met when we lived in the same dorm building. We became friends and formed a group with 2 other girls. Those 2 girls began to act strangely towards us, which led us to leave the group and bond over the experience. I only spent 2 to 3 days a week living in this small college town because I worked in a city 2 hours away, staying in my car on work nights. One must do what is necessary. And I spent 3 months in a different state twice a year. After our first year at college, both of us moved out of the dorms into a large house with some other students. I made friends with them, while she mostly kept to herself because they did not like how messy she was, and she disliked being asked to clean up after herself. I moved out when it was time for me to go to the other state for 3 months and put my belongings in storage. While I was away, I was involved in a significant car accident, causing everything to fall apart physically, financially, and mentally. However, I still wanted to continue my education. She was looking for a roommate but was struggling due to her conflicts with most people in the town. She only had me and 2 other friends. Initially, I considered keeping my belongings in storage and living in my car since my life was chaotic after the accident, and it would have been cheaper and easier, as I would only be in town for 2 days each week. However, I noticed her difficulties and decided to become her roommate, even agreeing to keep rooming with her during my absence in another state for 3 months, so that it would be easier for her. I was paying 3 times as much for rent as I would have for a storage unit, plus a $250 deposit. I lived there for a total of 6 months, but only actually stayed there for about 30 days during that time. Since we both knew she would be the primary resident, everything was in her name, but for some reason, she asked me to place the internet service under my name. I agreed and arranged it. I informed her of her portion of the internet bill and requested a breakdown of the utility bills so that I could know how much to reimburse her. I asked for this multiple times over the 6 months we shared that apartment, and she continually postponed it. While I was out of state, the internet service ceased functioning, and she messaged me asking me to contact the internet company. She wanted to know their hours of operation. This part was entirely my fault. I felt terrible about it. I kept forgetting to call them during their operating hours. Everything in my life was a complete mess, and I was barely holding on by a thread while trying to manage everything. Eventually, I reached out to them, and they informed me that I needed to return the internet equipment for an exchange. Since I was in a different state, I informed her that it would need to wait a couple of weeks until I returned. I had taught her how to drive, and she had a car, but she did not like to use it. Once I got back, I packed up the equipment, took it in, sorted everything out, and paid an additional $200 for someone to come and redo the setup. I did not ask her to contribute financially because it was my fault she had to wait. Every time I was home for those 2 days, I helped clean up. She tried harder to clean than she had at the previous place, but she still was messy. Her cats also created messes frequently, damaging the carpet, ruining my rug, and tearing down the curtains in my room, which caused some paint damage. She was very poor at cleaning the litter box, resulting in a terrible smell, and we had to address a flea infestation at one point. The place was not comfortable for me because of all this. I often stayed in my room with the door closed and the window open to avoid dealing with the mess and the odor. She consistently left all the lights on in the house, would leave water running, and occasionally left the stove on. She was also going through her own struggles, and I did my best to be a supportive friend. I drove hours multiple times to take her to appointments and even traveled 6 hours to pick her up from a mental health facility. This significantly reduced my work hours, costing me hundreds of dollars. I only asked for gas money once and did not receive it. She brought a drug addict into the apartment and expected me to manage him and take him home one night while I was available. She would throw tantrums and act out. Her conversations with the landlord made me fearful that we would lose the apartment. I felt incredibly unsafe because of all this. There was a concert that she desperately wanted to attend out of state, but due to her poor relationships with everyone in town, no one would drive her, and she did not want to drive herself. To support her, and because I also enjoyed that artist, I agreed at the last minute to take her to the concert. We invited one other friend and booked a hotel room. I barely got any sleep and wanted to go to the hotel before the concert to settle in and prepare. I told her I could drop her off because she was eager to get in line, but she joined us at the hotel instead. After we got ready, we went to get in line. She threw a fit and blamed me for the fact that she did not get to be at the front of the line, acting as if I had ruined her evening. I was deeply upset by her behavior, and I cringe every time I think about that night. Things between us continued to have a tense undercurrent, but on the surface, we maintained our friendship. We both decided to move out after 6 months and were going our separate ways. She was going to Virginia to live with her mother, while I was headed to Arizona. She mentioned trying to figure out how to transport her cats to Virginia since she was going to fly. She wanted to pay a friend $300 to drive them there for her. Although I should not have, I was not in a good mental or emotional state, so I offered to do it for that amount. We discussed it, and I told her I would need her to ask her mother if I could spend a night or two when we arrived. She said she would ask. I should have followed up to ensure it was a done deal, but I assumed everything was fine. This was entirely my fault. I later realized how poor my communication was and have since worked to improve it. If I had communicated better and persisted in asking her about things, perhaps the situation would not have turned out as it did. If I had not been so desperate for acceptance and appreciation, I would have treated myself better and refrained from doing so much for someone who was ungrateful at every turn. At some point, I considered the utility bill money, but she had kept postponing it, and I figured we could settle it once we arrived in Virginia, deducting it from the $300. Considering we lived in a mild climate with plenty of windows for natural light, I did not expect the utility costs to be significant. She was under considerable stress about affording to ship her belongings to her mother's house, so I suggested she cancel her flight to save money and that I could drive her, her cats, and some of her belongings. I mentioned that I was getting rid of most of my things, and there would be enough space for a good amount of her belongings. The day for moving out arrived, and she was not prepared. She requested an extra day, and I agreed. Then she asked for another day, and I consented. A third day came with the same request, and I agreed again. By this point, I was running low on money because I could not work in the small town and had to eat out since we no longer had food or dishes and had not planned to stay an extra 3 days. Eventually, she was ready, but she had an overwhelming amount of belongings. I told her that it would not fit and that she needed to downsize. I could sense her frustration and noticed her glaring at all of my belongings as I packed them into my car. After my things were packed, there was still about 1/4 of the car's capacity left. I asked her to start bringing her belongings down. Both of us had back issues. I had nearly been paralyzed from the waist down due to a recent major accident, but I was healing. Yet she insisted that her pain was more severe and kept crying about it. I needed to leave that town so I could start working. I could not wait around for her to be ready. Therefore, I ended up doing most of the work to bring her belongings down and pack them into my car. Ultimately, I had a large amount of her possessions strapped to the roof of my car in addition to those inside. Throughout this, she continued to act strangely towards me whenever I asked her to reduce the amount of her belongings. Once everything was out, it was time to clean the apartment. She barely helped. I ended up doing the majority of the cleaning and had to explicitly ask her to assist with even the most minimal tasks, which made her cry. Finally, we finished and were on our way. I drove a little over 2,000 miles in 21 hours, taking small breaks for 15-minute naps and to refuel the car. She contributed $120 for gas. I have a hybrid, so fuel did not cost much. But I had to ask her to pay each time, which felt odd, and she reacted awkwardly each time. At this point, I was genuinely concerned that she would not reimburse me. Her mother offered to lend her money for a hotel, but we were only a couple of hours away at that point, and I did not want to impose any financial strain on her so that she could repay me and not be stressed about money. We stopped for food just before arriving. I spent my last amount of money on some meals, hoping to sit down and enjoy a meal with them and get some much-needed rest after my 21-hour drive and work the following morning. When we arrived at her mother's house, they came out, barely spoke to me, and treated me very strangely. I had anticipated that they would invite me in, and we could all enjoy some food and relax before unpacking, but they hurried me to remove all of her belongings from my car. I was exhausted and starving. This whole situation was chaotic, and they stared at me judgmentally as I unloaded her things into the house. I overheard them discussing it. It has been a while, and I do not recall the exact words, but it was something along the lines of, "I don't know her and don't want her in my house, and I don't like how she's treated you." My heart sank. What had she told them about me? After all I had done for her, what did she say? Had she manipulated them into feeling sorry for her, just as she had often played the victim in our small town and ruined all her relationships? I was in full-fledged panic mode, unsure of what to do. My mind raced with thoughts of, where will I stay now? All of my belongings were wet from the rain that seeped in from the straps on the roof, and my car reeked of cat urine and feces because she did not heed my warnings to walk her cats, allowing them to use the bathroom in my vehicle. As reality set in, she approached me and thanked me for driving her cats, and her belongings to Virginia. Again, it shocked me that she was acting as if everything was fine. I responded with, "You're welcome," trying to suppress my panic. She then said goodbye to me and wished me safe travels. In a daze, I replied wishing her well and got into my car to leave. I parked in a lot and began to cry. I was out of money, had not slept, was in immense pain, had nowhere to rest, my bedding was soaked, and I was starving. My food was cold, and I could not eat until I found a safe place to sleep because the moment I ate, I would fall asleep and be unable to drive. I was barely able to drive as it was. I had to drive an additional 45 minutes to reach a secure spot to rest. Once I woke up, I was thoroughly upset. I blocked her on everything, completely done with her. I could not believe what had just happened. In retrospect, I realized that I set myself up for failure by catering to her every need, ignoring red flags, and due to my lack of communication. I acknowledge my mistakes and have regrets. I could have handled the internet situation much better, could have pressed her more about the utility bills, and should have double-checked that everything was set regarding my stay for a night when we arrived, concerning the $300 payment for all the driving and the work I did for her. I should have gotten it in writing. After about a week, she found a way to reach me and began demanding $335 for the utility bills, without any breakdown of the bills or explanations, while acting as if she had no idea why I blocked her on everything. I had not communicated my reasons to her, but it should not take a genius to figure it out. I was still extremely upset about everything and overwhelmed with emotions regarding that incident and several other things happening in my life. I informed her that it was unfair she had not asked me for a place to stay beforehand, as I had requested, that it was unjust she had not reimbursed me the $300, and that I had intended to sit down with her to resolve everything when we arrived in Virginia, but since they essentially forced me out, I did not get that opportunity. I then explained that all the work I had done was more than adequate compensation, especially since she consistently left the lights and water running, and I had only been present for 30 days out of the 3 months. She claimed she never agreed to pay me $300 and that the $120 she paid for gas was sufficient compensation. She implied that if I felt that way, I should have told her, and she would have found a real friend willing to do it all for free. The only friend she had left nearby lived in another state and did not have a car. She threatened to post on social media about how evil I was and that I owed her money, among other things. I blocked her again. She continued requesting the money through various payment platforms, each titled, "Do the right thing and pay me what you owe." After about a year, the requests ceased. It has been 2 years since then. I have undergone tremendous personal growth, attended therapy, reorganized my life, improved my communication skills, and scrutinized the patterns I was repeating. This specific situation is the only one that continues to trouble me. I value being a good person and doing right by others, and I dislike that this was left in such a negative state. I feel remorse for my role in it going awry. I understand that she was also dealing with a lot and maybe regrets her actions as well. I am uncertain. I honestly doubt it, but I try to maintain an open mind. That said, am I the antagonist for not paying her $335? This issue has been weighing heavily on me, and I am unsure what to do. Should I pay her and move on? I feel that if I do, I would be encouraging her behavior. She might perceive it as validation that she was right all along. Conversely, I dislike the thought of her spreading rumors that I owe her money and that I am a bad person. What should I do? Additionally, I never received my $250 deposit back. Either she took it or the landlord retained it due to the cat damages. Story 2. How do I confront my situationship relationship about potential infidelity and lying? M20M22. Hello everyone. I am a 20-year-old male, and I have been in a situationship with, for the sake of storytelling, whom we will refer to as August, a 22-year-old male. For the past couple of days, I have been grappling with the idea of confronting my long-term situationship regarding his persistent dishonesty towards me. We are planning to hang out tomorrow, and I am contemplating addressing this issue with him. However, I need outside advice and opinions on what I should say to him. To summarize, over a 6-month situationship, August has deceived me about visiting a buddy's house. I am under the impression that he went and had sexual relations with someone random and lied to me about it. I am considering confronting him about this tomorrow. If you wish to provide immediate advice and are curious about what I intend to ask him, please refer to the final 4 paragraphs. However, this situation has a significantly detailed and complex background that is pertinent, and I urge you to read the following paragraphs before jumping ahead. With this story, I am not proud of my actions and mistakes. However, I seek your empathy and understanding. Background information. August and I have been communicating since June 2024 after my then-boyfriend, whom we will refer to as Cole, a 21-year-old male, broke up with me in May 2024. A week after Cole and I ended our relationship, I regretfully began adding people on Grindr, which is how Cole and I had initially met, and I eventually added August. August and I exchanged messages on Snapchat for a few days, during which we discussed past relationships. I mentioned that my previous relationship with Cole was long distance. Cole had been drafted into the Army since September 2023. August asked if his name was Cole and sent me a screenshot of their Snapchat friendship profile. It turned out that August had been cheating on me since September 2023, when we began dating, sending explicit snapshots to several people throughout our entire relationship, August among them, and he provided proof that Cole had been sending these explicit images to him since September. August and I both attempted to confront Cole about the cheating, but to no avail. Cole ultimately removed both of us from his contacts. A month later, around July 2024, August and I were still communicating. We discovered we both played the same games, began gaming together, and grew closer after the situation with Cole. One day, August casually mentioned in a message that he had been in a relationship with a girl for 7 months, from January 2024 to July 2024. A reminder for everyone. This means he has been cheating on his girlfriend with my ex-boyfriend throughout their entire relationship. August then informed me that she was attending one of the state's major colleges. He lives about 45 minutes away from that college and is taking online courses from home, and that his parents either hadn't met her or did not believe she existed. August also mentioned that he was only using her for intercourse and would not break up with her because she's not giving me what I want, meaning sex, and that I would rather hurt myself than hurt her, which I hope illustrates the type of person we are discussing. However, he wants to cheat on her with me, August, and I had never met face-to-face before. We had only texted on Snapchat and Grindr up to that point. He claimed that he planned to break up with her by the end of summer, asserting that there was too much going on in her life and expressing that he did not want to hurt her by ending their relationship. He mentioned she had a significant exam coming up, was going on vacation, and that her birthday was approaching. After this shocking revelation, I do not recall him mentioning his girlfriend again, and I assume they broke up around late July or August 2024. Other rapid-fire events that occurred during this time, July-December 2024, I discovered that August's first girlfriend, they communicated on the bus in 8th grade for 2 weeks, was one of my managers at my job. She stated that all he did was talk about himself and was narcissistic. I had blocked him 2 or 3 times for reasons I no longer remember, but I am sure I had a valid justification for it. I informed my best friend, whom we will refer to as Tim, a 19-year-old male, about my current relationship situation, and Tim became infuriated, developing a strong dislike for August. It escalated to the point where Tim forced me to block August, memorized his username, and messaged August behind my back without informing me. In summary, both of them made nonsensical and unfounded threats towards each other, with both claiming to have won the exchange. Starting in September-October 2024, August began coming over to my place and hanging out with me every couple of weeks, but he did not stay longer than 1 or 2 hours due to living at home with his overprotective parents and being in the closet. August confided in me that he fully believes he is a sociopath. He stated that he had only helped me with my problems in the past out of guilt, and that he has to manufacture feelings of sadness, a thought he has had since high school. During this conversation, he expressed that others see him as unreadable, and that he primarily feels an extreme level of anger or nothing at all. He indicated that his mother shares these feelings. August had been quite reluctant about sharing our Snapchat locations with each other, and told me that he frequently checks my location, wanting to know where I am 24/7. By this point, in December 2024, I moved out of my apartment and back in with my mother due to her health issues, and I decided to attempt a fresh start by blocking August. 3 weeks later, while I was at work, I noticed him walking out with one of his friends out of the corner of my eye. I immediately unblocked him and asked why he came to my workplace. He explained that his friend needed to buy something and wanted to be in and out without interacting with me. This incident led to us talking again for another month or so, until he blocked me for a week in February 2025, claiming he needed a break, but then returned because he missed me, mind you. All of the blocks thus far had originated from me. Recent information asking for advice. We had been getting along well until last week, starting on Thursday, when he visited the college town, the same one where his ex-girlfriend lived, to see his cousin due to his upcoming bachelor's party. I did not think much of it, until August suddenly turned off his location halfway through the day and then attributed it to poor cell service, which I found to be an unusual excuse and raised some alarms. He later turned his location back on Thursday night or Friday morning after I had gone to bed. The following day, Friday, he was largely silent on his phone throughout the day, although he went back up to his cousin's house for a few hours. Please note that I only knew this because August had insisted we share our live locations on Snapchat. I found it strange that he was driving back again, and when he was finally en route home from the college town, I jokingly asked where he had been all day. He claimed he was running errands for his parents since they were out of town, and stated he went to a town in a completely different direction than where he had spent the entire day, never mentioning returning to his cousin's house. Odd. At this point, it became Saturday, and I began experiencing flashbacks of distrust from my previous relationship with Cole. In a move I am not proud of, but which is relevant to the story, I created an alternative account on Grindr and started messaging him. With this fake account, I learned that August claimed to have had sex yesterday with a girl, that she's my main, and that he engages in sexual relations with her every week whenever I want. While I believe the first statement, I do not trust the latter two and think he is embellishing to boost his self-esteem. August proceeded to give me his main Snapchat account and expressed a desire to hook up with the Grindr account, but never followed through. At this point, I am completely heartbroken and furious, yet I recognize the need to calm down before allowing my emotions to overwhelm me. August and I have planned to hang out on Tuesday tomorrow, and I have been contemplating raising the issue then, as we've been organizing this meeting for a week. I am unsure what I should say and how to approach the topic of infidelity. I feel that this conversation, regardless of the outcome, is the only path forward for me. I am not adept at moving on from him, and I want to confront him about it to determine whether he will lie directly to my face regarding the matter. However, I am uncertain about what information I should or should not bring up, as I believe this confrontation may be my only opportunity to potentially move on. If you have read this far, thank you for your attention, and I look forward to your advice. Story 3. From 5th grade crush to ghosting each other, my bond with a girl named Zeiss has been a roller coaster. After unexpected encounters and mutual blockages, I finally confessed my feelings, only to find out she's with someone else. Should I reconnect after my exams? Here is the corrected post. Hello, I am 18 years old. Back in 2017, I was in the 5th standard in school, and there was a girl named XYZ, very beautiful, cute, and adorable. She was on my school van. In the 5th standard, 2017, I began to feel an attraction toward her, and by the 6th standard, 2018, I had deeply fallen for her. I was madly in love with her, and even started creating fake scenarios in my mind involving her. However, I was too shy to confess my feelings to her. Gradually, we began talking to each other. We used to play games in the van along with other van mates as well. In the 7th standard 2019, due to certain reasons, I had to leave that school and join another one. I started behaving sadly and terribly missed her. I then decided to meet her on the occasion of Friendship Day. I went to her house with my friend. I tied her friendship band and stayed for about 30 minutes. After returning from her house, I felt extremely happy because I had met her after 4 months. After that day, I did not meet her or talk to her for about 7 months. There was no connection between us. Then, in March 2020, she messaged me on TikTok. We started chatting for the first time. We developed a very good bond and gradually became best friends. Unfortunately, TikTok was banned in India on June 29, 2020, and again there was no connection between us for 6 months. Then, in December 2020, I connected with her on Snapchat. We resumed chatting and built upon the good bond we already had, transforming it into a great one. We began sharing snaps with each other. If I had proposed to her at that moment, she would have definitely said yes because she knew that I loved her, but I did not do it because I was too shy. Everything was going well, but then I felt a sense of distraction from my studies. In April 2021, I decided that I should take a break from her. We mutually agreed to this, but she was sad and even asked my friends to encourage me to unblock her. I blocked her in April 2021 and unblocked her in August 2021 to wish her a happy Friendship Day. She was very happy when I messaged her. We started chatting again, and I remember on Ganpati Agman, the first day of Ganpati, she called me, and we talked for a couple of minutes. However, after the conversation, I felt guilty about what kind of boy I was becoming. I started to feel that if I continued in this manner, I would ruin my career, and the very next day, I told her that we would not talk to each other until I completed my 12th grade. She was angry and felt frustrated, questioning why I was behaving this way repeatedly, thinking I was being dramatic. I explained my reasoning to her, and she understood and agreed. We mutually blocked each other in August 2021. Fast forward to September 2022, a friend of mine named Amit, a fake name, suggested that I should join this tuition class for mathematics since he was attending it as well. I agreed. We went to that tuition class together. On my first day, the moment I entered the classroom, there she was, beautiful, sitting with her friends. The moment I saw her, my adrenaline rushed so high that I started sweating, and I could hear the beats of my heart. In the heat of anger, I shouted at Amit, asking why he had brought me there. It wasn't his fault at all since he did not know about my feelings, and he was from my current school. Her friends began mocking me, hitting me with paper balls, and I felt extremely nervous, essentially making fun of me. I could not handle it, and after that day, I never went back. Although it was an accidental meeting, we did not talk to each other and did not make eye contact. But then I found out that she was in a relationship with a boy named ABC. I was deeply shattered and sad. I thought I would deal with it later and just focus on my 10th board exams. I completed my 10th board exams and scored 93.4% while she scored 77%. I then went to another city for my JEE preparation while she remained in town. In July 2023, at the beginning of my 11th standard, I realized it had been so long since I had talked to her. I downloaded Instagram and messaged her, but as I mentioned, she was in a relationship with another guy. She replied, "Hi, how's it going?" and had a formal conversation with me. She even asked if we could have the same bond we once had. I agreed. In July 2023, I decided to propose to her, regardless of her response, and I did. She replied with an okay, and her boyfriend confronted me, saying I should stay away from her. I explained to him that I only wanted to share my feelings with her, which I had held for 5 years, and that was it. From July 2023 to March 2025, we had no communication. I don't know where she is currently or what she is doing, but I heard that she broke up with her boyfriend. I have the JEE Advanced exam in 2026, about a year from now. I am preparing for the JEE Advanced, but I felt I should share this with someone. After my JEE, should I try to reconnect with her?